If you find drawing trees in ink a laborious process, it may come as a surprise to learn that in fact they lend themselves very well to a fast, brisk drawing style. And these little clump of trees, or clump of large trees in Tasmania, I thought were a great example for a brisk drawing style of trees that doesn't take long. It's not something we have to get bogged down in. And yet we can capture the effect of, well, there are 7 trees here really that I think are worth considering as whole trees, from just behind the bridge to that dark type tree further up the back. And we have 4 different types of trees here. And so the first thing you'll see that I did was I created an outline silhouette for each tree. When we're drawing quickly, we can very quickly get things wrong, especially the proportions such as the width to the height of the tree, or we can impose on another tree's airspace, so to speak, very quickly and easily. So I find it's very helpful in a quick drawing particularly to define the edges. But even so, I want to make my marks appropriate for the sort of effect I'm going to try and create using my marks for the tree. I don't want my outline to look out of place at the end. And each of these trees, well, of the 4 types of trees here, I think has a quite different silhouette edge, and therefore it also catches the shadows differently. And so I've tried to represent that in my marks. It's all about capturing the effect in our marks. Now, this great tall tree in the front, I presume it's a poplar of some sort, or a very, very healthy poplar. And there's another smaller one in front of it, closer to us on the bridge. But they really could be the one tree, and I wasn't overly concerned, given they're the same species and they're same colours and catching the same light, of distinguishing those. But I did want to get a different sense of the more semicircular tree underneath. And so, whereas I used very long, elongated hatching marks to capture the effect of the shadow, which I thought worked in well with the very lengthy vertical growth habit of the tree, that a shorter, spottier effect and silhouette would hopefully distinguish this tree beneath. Now, I haven't done it yet. I'm still doing the hatching for the main tree, which did obviously take longer than the rest of the trees. But when I do the hatching for the tree directly beneath this one, and I do it in a couple of stages, you'll notice that I work it to a mid-tone, and I try and make the directions of the lines different to the directions of the lines of not just the tree above, but the peppercorn trees to the right, where there are 2 or 3. I think there's definitely 3. There possibly could be 4, but they are large trees. But they're the somewhat shaggy with a downward vertical habit, as opposed to the upward vertical habit of the poplar. The peppercorn trees have a soft, very soft surface texture effect and catching the light because of the way each leaf is constructed of hundreds of smaller leaves all attached in a certain way. Creates almost like a layered lace effect as the sunlight hits the canopy. And then we have that wonderfully distinct tree at the back. I don't think it's a cedar of Lebanon because of the overall shape, but its growth habit, that slightly upward horizontal habit, some sort of cypress pine is my guess, but if you know, please tell us in the comments. And so you can see, you're watching this at almost real time. This is 1.25 times. So it took me 15 minutes to draw the whole thing in real life. And I'm using a 0.3mm pen for the whole drawing. Now, it was a bit tempting to swap pens, lighter pens for the trees that go further back. But I think with quick drawings, we often don't have that luxury of swapping pens. We may be somewhere and just have one pen and 15 minutes and think, I'll do a drawing. So I think it is good to practice doing these drawings using the one pen and just trying to get the effects that we want from one pen. So now I'm starting to think more about this lower tree and the hatching. But after I've done some hatching on the peppercorn trees, I come back and I just modify that somewhat to create more of a distinction between that tree and the peppercorn trees further down the road. And the thing about our drawings is, as our drawings progress, we can go back and revise what we've already done, which is why it's sometimes good when we draw with ink to draw with a lighter touch than we think we're probably going to finish up with, because it gives us more scope once we've finished more of the drawing to start to get a sense of the overall shapes and the composition and particularly the values. And since we can't lighten, we can only darken once we've drawn them, then to go a little lighter early can be a very prudent habit to get into. Although equally, there are many drawings where doing the very darkest part first is a way of achieving that same goal. It's the principle of working it the way it works best for this drawing and for your purposes for this drawing. But we can't tell so easily how things look until we've drawn some of the other things that they are alongside. So at 15 minutes for a significant clump of trees, I think is pretty good. And because we're keeping up a fairly brisk pace with all of them, they all blend together still. They go together just graphically. They do look as though they were all drawn at the same time together. I certainly have to slow down when it comes to this bridge and the trees and so forth. I hadn't really thought of how much I was going to draw, but the trees did need a little bit of context since they didn't sit into the ground, given this view behind the oldest bridge in Australia, the Richmond Bridge in Tasmania. And now we come to this final tree, and again the thinking is, what marks and what values do I need to capture this tree, this type of tree? And a good point to remember is, as values go backwards, this is quite a dark tree. It looks as dark as the shadows in the closest tree, but part of that effect is from the colour, not from the lighting. And generally, when things go backwards, their colours lighten. So there's always this juggle when we have multiple factors, and we have to choose in the end what works best for our drawing. I think that if that furthest tree in my drawing was a bit lighter and the darkest shadows in my closest large tree was darker, I think that would possibly work better. It would just flick the sense of depth and distance, bringing this darker tree in the front further forward so that it's clearly ahead of the one up the back, where the darkness, I think, just is a bit visually misleading. I can do that now, of course, but unfortunately you won't be able to see it. So a little bit of context, just looking at the parts around here that aren't the trees. And it's a fairly hilly, sloped area. And then after that, really it's just the bridge. And then I go back and have another look at some of the foliage. I do that first, do I? Okay. So now I'm doing some overall hatching lines, looking at the tree as a much larger shape and hatching in long lines, but light long lines. I want these long lines to have a very different effect to the long lines I drew on that first tree. So it's always about creating marks for each tree that both capture the effect of how that tree looks in life, but also creates the effect of separation from the trees next to it. The appeal of trees can often be their variety in a given scene, but we lose that if they all end up looking like the foliage is the same. So now I've just added some more foliage to create more of a mid-tone, but I think I should have put a little more darkness above. And if you found this helpful, please hit the like button. And if you've got friends who draw and you think they'd benefit, then why not share some of my videos with them? So now I've just got the stone effects. At this stage I'm looking and thinking, oh, some of these lines aren't as accurate as they could have been. But the important thing is whatever lines I put down here, to keep them light and loose, because I want the focus to be the tree. I just want enough ink down here to create context, but not for it to start to pull the eye away. And this is part of always considering the overall effect for the whole drawing that we want at all stages, not getting caught up in the part that we're doing right now, and leaving some scope for adding more ink at the end if we need it. And just put the roundabout in, and this one's pretty well done. Now, I have a tree playlist if you're interested in seeing more from me on drawing trees, but trees are often difficult because of the technique we use to draw them and the way we view them. We need to stop seeing them as extraordinarily complex shapes, which makes it in our mind difficult to draw, and just see them as textured surfaces that we want to capture the effect of light and dark on. And if we capture that effect, then the trees seem to appear almost by magic. And then I thought, well, why not give it a go and just see the effect if I very quickly, in the same brisk style, taking no more than 2 minutes, just darken around the edges of these front trees and see if it helps bring a sense of closeness towards us from them. Have I improved it or not? I don't know. What do you think? G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this interesting. Hope you found it helpful. And of course, you'll find this reference photo on my channel community page, so you can have a go drawing it yourself. But look, whatever you draw, however you draw it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.